familiar with the rise of Wrexham over the last couple of years under the new exciting ownership of actors Ryan Reynolds and Rob McElhenney. You guys have probably watched the documentary. You've probably seen them featured in the FIFA series years ago, and you're going to see more of them, right? The actors took over a struggling Welsh club, and with care and respect for its history, community, and the real foundational core needs, along with, yes, some financial investment and some star power, but they've turned that club around into what it is today. You've probably likely seen the news, too, that the club has recently been promoted to the Championship, making it the first time in the history of England's top 5 divisions that a club has achieved back-to-back-to-back promotions. That is a big deal. In this journey, though, of Wrexham, I see many parallels to Manchester United, both positive and negative. And while watching how Wrexham have gone about their turnaround, I believe that Ineos could learn a thing or two about owning and running a football club, not just for success and whatnot, but really reminding of what really makes a football club. It doesn't involve doing a documentary. It doesn't involve having any of that. Yes, the two clubs are miles apart in terms of stature and funding and fan base and all that stuff. But that doesn't mean that Ineos and United can't steal a page or two from Wrexham's book. So that's what I want to take a look at today. So hit that like button for me. Subscribe to the channel if you are new. Make sure to check out UVE merch. You have a couple more days left at 25% off in the store. Check those memberships as well to get more involved. Let's dive in, right? Let me start by saying, I'm not concerned about what the Glazers have done from day one, how they got the club, what they've done. We know all that. It's academic. I'm not going to go into all that. It's a moot point at this point. It's too late for them. We know who they are. We know what they're about. It's Ineos now and Sir Jim Ratcliffe who have an opportunity to look at not only what the Glazers have done and then also what Wrexham are doing. They have an opportunity to look at those things and learn from that, the mistakes and the goods, and learn also what to do differently. Now, before we look at the things I think that are being done at Wrexham that I think Ineos should consider replicating, I think it's important to take note of a few things that, they really don't make too big of a difference. The stark differences are just too grand between the two clubs for some of these things to even be a concern. Wrexham are just not Man United in more ways than one. And one of those ways that starts out is the finances. Wrexham were a bit of a force in the 60s and 70s, but towards the mid-80s, they sort of began to decline a little bit, relying heavily on strong cup runs to boost that finance, keep that match day revenue coming, keep butts in the seats, basically. And in the early 2000s, their chairman, Alex Hamilton, sort of went a little the wrong way for a lot of people. In an effort really to make some money off the stadium, he decided to go ahead and force the club to leave the racecourse ground because he wanted to sell it to a company that he owned. This decision was reversed a little later on, but the club's financial woes continued. And in 2004, they were forced almost into administration. They sort of went into a spiral. That is until 2020, when Ryan Reynolds and Rob McElhenney purchased the club for just $2 million and loaned nearly $15 million to it. That loan has now been repaid in full, with extra being made on top of that. But these guys have also worked to get new sponsors, new partners, new investors. They've raised the club's worth to more than $100 million just in the short time they've been there. So, and even that, though, is a drop in the ocean. And United have spent that much on a single player, really. So, again, the differences are stark. While PSR is hitting United hard, and recently our funds are running pretty low, we still don't need to worry about finances the way Wrexham do. We don't have to worry, hey, are we going to get 5 to 10 grand to fund some seating replacements we can manage that, right? Let's just say it would take more than $2 million and $15 million of loans to make a dent at Manchester United right now. But we kind of know that, right? So finances aren't really a big deal. It brings us to our next thing, global fan base. The Welcome to Wrexham documentary, the series on FX, has put the club on the map, really, and made it a worldwide phenomenon. There's no arguing that. Everybody knows about it. When I was looking at doing sponsorships, even for my local semi-pro club, when I would reach out to businesses, I've had more than a few people who clearly don't know a thing at all about football ask me like, oh, is that like welcome to Wrexham? Like, of course it is. Now give me your money right now. But now you've got everybody in the world know who Wrexham are. Supporters clubs are popping up all over the world. The matches, are now being broadcast on major networks. That's just never happened. And again, like I said, the team was featured in FIFA 22 as part of the rest of the world. You guys will probably remember the funny commercial from that. But this has also seen the club's merchandise reach global level sales numbers. There was a data science team from global e-commerce firm Pattern who analyzed consumer demand for Wrexham sales, and that it skyrocketed on Amazon, literally by 47% on average, the day after each new episode of the series is released. Wrexham football shirts were the most in-demand item. They saw an average increase of 113%. That's what that kind of thing can do for a small club. Again, doesn't really make a dent for United because we are already the biggest club in the world when it comes to the fan base, to the merch, the recognition. We own that. That is ours. You can't buy that kind of stature. That just comes from who we are. So again, another one of the differences. Moving on. Sponsors, partnerships. Not only did the ownership of Wrexham increase the club's fan base, but it attracted new sponsorships and investors to a club that really hadn't had that sort of appeal until that point, right? Brands like TikTok, United Airlines, HP, Stoke, Vistaprint, and Gatorade have all jumped on board the Wrexham bandwagon in various sponsorships capacities. And other clubs now are even interested in purchasing and have purchased minority stakes in Wrexham, like Necaxa, a Mexican club. They purchased 5% stake, with an agreement that Reynolds and McElhenney would purchase 5% in Necaxa in return. At United, we've seen how sponsorships have been heavily prioritized in recent years, especially during the Ed Woodward era, which we all are probably really hoping to forget, right? But to be fair to Ed, that was his job, Ed Woodward. His job was all about the marketing, the partnerships, getting revenue from that way, just like this new guy, the guy we got from PSG. That's his job. I think it's Armstrong, is that his name? It was clear, though, that at United, that without Sir Alex, without David Gill to kind of really be the voice for the real foundational needs, the important things of the club, it became clear that without them in the boardroom, that the owners, the Glazers, and Ed Woodward, they really kind of went rogue a little bit with the focus, and again, academic. So it is what it is. Moving on. Success in history. Despite their modest stature, Wrexham were once a very formidable side, and they have a few trophies here and there to their name, even after their decline. The FAW Premier Cup, FA Trophy, Football League Trophy, National League winners in 23-24. Like they've got some success, and of course they have been on the ascendancy in the last few years. Again, like we said, back-to-back promotions is a big deal, no matter how you slice it. And I think that being in the championship next season is going to be huge for them. There might not be as much to celebrate at United these days, but United fans of a certain vintage like myself will recall the days when we did dominate, when we dominated domestically, when we dominated in Europe, when we were feared. Well, we've had a few trophies in the last 10 years, yes, but we're nowhere near where we used to be. We are still the biggest club in the world, though. You can fight me on that one. But Wrexham really have made a point to look at other things as well, the community thing, mental health initiatives, programs involving culture, various programs for seniors, people with physical disabilities, youth, the underprivileged. Even their academy at Wrexham has now achieved Category 3 status under these new owners, which signifies an attention to developing young local talent. Like I said, Wrexham have done a lot in the last few years on and off the pitch. But what we just covered, again, is a bit of the drop in the ocean. Those are the things that I don't think United really needs to worry about. The finances, the success, the global fan base, all that. So the sponsors, all that stuff we have that. We don't need to worry about that too much. Sometimes, though, it's the little things that have the biggest impact. Even pebbles make big ripples, right? And I think that United have maybe lost sight of that. And what we need to really focus on right now moving forward is finding a way to get back to our roots, something that Wrexham have done, some of their new owners have really made a point to do. Ineos and Sir Jim and United in general would do well, I think, to humble themselves and go back to the roots to start this proper rebuild. We need to find our heart. We need to be reminded of where we came from, because you can't focus too much on moving forward that you get so far away from your roots. And we have to really remember that. A Philadelphia native and diehard Eagles fan, Rob McElhenney, understood the importance of the fans and the community when it comes to a team's DNA and even its success, right? If you watch Welcome to Wrexham, you will have seen Rob really make a point to discover and understand Wrexham really at that ground level, right? The fan and the community level, meeting with people in their homes, on the streets, looking at historical sites, trying so hard to figure out a way to preserve that and bring it to the forefront, because that's what it's about. I think United have lost sight of that, which can sometimes come as a risk of being successful. But it's always going to be neglected, though, when people who have no ties or personal investment are in charge, i.e. the Glazers. It has nothing to do with the Glazers being American. It has everything to do with the distance that they've always put between themselves and the club, the focus that they've put on their own bank accounts, and the fact that they did nothing to earn what they have, so they have no appreciation for it. They've stood on the shoulders of the giants who've come before them: Busby, Charlton, Best, Law, Ferguson, Murphy. They've taken zero interest in the fans. And I think Ineos have a free hit here to really take a look at the history of the Glazers' ownership, the resulting fan outrage, rightfully so, right? And then make an intentional effort to avoid, in every way possible, avoid making those same mistakes. It wouldn't take much, really, to look better than the Glazers in that regard. And to be fair, Sir Jim has openly commented and even criticized how uninvolved the Glazers have been for years. He said that it's been a major contributing factor, and it's probably not okay, right? And this regeneration task force is meant to focus on that. It's meant to include fan input as well and community input. Again, Ineos have a free hit here, a free opportunity to do things differently, but they're striking out at the moment. Where Wrexham made a point to feature almost an entire episode about Arthur Massey, for instance, a 99-year-old local who has been a lifelong Wrexham fan. United, on the other hand, are canceling season tickets of an older fan with dementia who's been a fan for almost 50 years simply because his ticket, which is a very old season ticket, wasn't able to physically be scanned because it's so old. They're canceling that. Add to that the relocation of legacy fans from behind the dugout to other areas so the dugout seats can be made for executive seating. It's not a good look, right? If you go to Old Trafford, you'll see the museum, you'll see the Munich tunnel, the Munich clock, statues of Sir Matt, Sir Alex, the Trinity, et cetera, et cetera. With Munich, the slogan is, never forgotten. So Ineos need to make sure the success and the sacrifices from throughout United's history are preserved and cherished, so that future generations of fans, of players, of coaches, of board members, and of owners, they don't forget and they don't lose appreciation for that. Not only should all these even physical elements be brought to the new stadium, but they need to be given a dedicated position of prominence and esteem that they so rightfully deserve. They are the reason we are where we are. They are the reason the club makes the money for the owners. They are the reason we are as prestigious as we are. Expand the museum, sure, but incorporate the trophies and memories into public areas so that everyone can see. You shouldn't have to pay extra money just to go see how successful we are. Make it a part of the public arena from this new stadium. Don't hide it all in some room. Yeah, you can have the museum, but share part of that too. The point is to expose everyone to the timeline of triumph and the tribulations of the biggest club in the world. You want that to be seen no matter who you are. It sends a message of pride. It sends a message of prestige. It's football heritage that you just can't buy. Moving on to another thing I think that Ineos really could learn from the Wrexham series is taking a look at the focus that they've put on stadium and the facilities. Like a spoiled kid who's been handed a sports car, another characteristics of owners who have no skin in the game is a complete lack or care of the stadium and the facilities of the club that they own. Rob and Ryan were shocked at the state of Wrexham's facilities, especially the gym, if you guys remember that episode. They quickly established a new medical department for players and staff that didn't exist beforehand. The oldest international stadium in the world, the Racecourse Ground, wasn't even owned by Wrexham when the guys took over. Wrexham University owned the stadium, and then in 2016, the university signed a deal to lease it back to the club. They handed over all operational control, yes, but Wrexham didn't own their stadium. And it was partially in ruins anyway. The cop was completely unusable. One of the first things Rob and Ryan did was to figure out how to purchase the stadium. And in 2022, they did repurchase the stadium. In 2023, Stoke became the new sponsor for the stadium. Work is now being done to revamp the Kop. Remember, they put a temporary seating in as well, but now they're trying to completely rebuild the Kop, add that seating back. There are plans also to increase the stadium's capacity between 45 and 55,000 seats. We know all about stadium neglect at United, don't we? We're no strangers to the leaky roof, the poor facilities, the state of the restrooms and whatnot. The fact that because it's never been looked at, we can't even consider adding to it because the structure just wasn't updated. The Glazers have done a little bit with the turf and some paint here and there, but overall, like the neglect and the lack of care has really led us to the point where we have no other opportunity or no other option other than to build a new one. That's unfortunate. It is what it is, but it's just part of it, right? As far as I know, the investment by the Glazers into Old Trafford or any of United's facilities has been minimal, and very little funds, if at any at all, were from the Glazers' own pockets. Typically, they've allocated club-generated revenue for any improvements, any maintenance, anything that's been done has been long overdue anyway, or has simply just been part of regular upkeep. It's like praising yourself for getting an oil change on the car. Like that needs to be done. Like you didn't do anything special. It's either that or you don't get to drive the car. But a lot of these basic things have been portrayed by the previous owners as state of the art improvements, such as paint or like the floodlights a couple years back. They weren't involved with Carrington's construction that was done before they got here. In 2013, they did allocate funds for the addition of that medical facility at the training grounds. But even the equipment for that was donated by Toshiba, who was the sponsor and the manufacturer of that equipment. In 2023, the women's team and the academy were given a new $10 million facility, but that's been done by the new owners. Overall, very little has been done to keep Old Trafford or the training facilities up to date or even on par with just modern football in general. And it's no strange. We know that that's the case. Famously in his big explosive interview with Piers Morgan, Cristiano Ronaldo said as much about the club that he returned to. He says, "I don't know what's going on, but since Sir Alex Ferguson left, I saw no evolution in the club. The progress was zero. Nothing changed. Surprisingly, not only the pool, the jacuzzi, even the gym, even some points, the technology, the kitchen, the chefs, which is, I appreciate, a lovely person, they stopped in time, which surprised me a lot." Again, there seems to be like no desire whatsoever to make sure that the club stays current with its facilities, that it looks at what has been left to rot and tries to get out ahead of that, much less any initiative to get out ahead or look for the newest advancements in fitness, sports science, nutrition, any of that stuff. Sir Jim, though, to his credit, has pledged $300 million infrastructure that's already kicked off again with that major $50 million renovation of Carrington, along with plans to build a completely new stadium in the next 5 years that is going to be part of the Manchester, that whole community regeneration project in that area. Remember, in order for the stadium to even be approved, it had to be a part of that whole project. Now, again, no public funds are going that, no government funds are going towards that. That's already been categorically stated by journalists or some journalists, the good journalists, Sir Jim himself, the mayor, all of that stuff. So don't believe what people like the BBC are trying to peddle. It's just a shame, though, that the Glazers' neglect means that renovating Old Trafford isn't even really a viable option. This isn't just the brick and mortar stuff, though. It also means updating the scouting, the data analysis, even the mental health aspects of the club's football operations. That all falls under the umbrella of stadium and facilities. Wrexham made a point to do that. We need to take a page out of that book and really make sure that we're putting the care of the fans, the players, the staff as a priority, if that is something that makes sense to everyone. So moving on, speaking of staff, the staff. One of the first things that the new Wrexham owners made sure they did when they arrived was repay the club's day-to-day staff all the wages they lost during furlough during COVID. Remember, a lot of people were put on furlough, and then the first thing they did was pay them back. Recognizing the sacrifices made by these employees during all these challenging times, the new owners ensured that those who accepted reduced pay were fully compensated. I can't ever imagine United's owners thinking about that. This gesture was about creating a positive environment. We know all about that, right? And acknowledging the staff's dedication. Again, complete opposite of what we've seen, right? They also introduced at Wrexham performance-based incentives such as a $250K promotion bonus plan to provide an incentive for achieving goals in an effort to demonstrate commitment to the hard work of staff and players. They've also shown interest in offered support to the projects of staff and players, and they've even participated in these projects to help them along. Players, staff, they have other things that they're a part of, other things that are involved in their lives. And the new owners at Wrexham made sure that they could help in any way, shape, or form they could. Again, I can't imagine the Glazers or even Sir Jim doing that. I get that at a club the size of United, it makes it really impossible in some ways to personally see to the personal lives and the individual needs of each and every staff member, or even each and every player to some regard. But it wouldn't be difficult to take note of a few things going around the club, some few personal interest projects, even some struggles, and make a point to single out a couple of them, just a handful, to personally support in these ventures. Yes, there are people who are going to say it's just a PR move or whatever, but at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. The support is still there, no matter the reason. It's still being done, and I'm sure the people on the receiving end are going to appreciate it no matter what. The funding and promotion, et cetera, is there. Instead, though, what we've seen at United is massive redundancies, cutbacks on perks and incentives like the match day bonuses for stewards and whatnot. Many of these cuts, like I've said on the channel many times, are the result of Ineos, or sorry, the last decade, because the finances have become wildly unsustainable. And Ineos are unfortunately the face of these decisions when it's the Glazers who have created the situations in the first place. But I still maintain that where Ineos are concerned, that I think there, with a little more time to sit and brainstorm, there could be other options to explore and implement before simply going through round after round of layoffs. I think that it shows a little bit of a lack of initiative, a little bit of laziness, a little bit of an easy way out, when I think that a little more creative problem solving could have seen some alternatives, some more preferable alternatives brought to light. But whereas Wrexham made a point to demonstrate support and attention to the day-to-day atmosphere and morale, Ineos have had the opposite effect. They've had harsh, albeit necessary, but harsh decisions that have seen a lot of people lose their jobs or lose some of the perks of working at United, which has hurt the atmosphere, hurt the morale, and really put a dent in the family mentality that we've had at this club for so long. I still don't get the outrage over the removal of free lunches. Again, I don't think a whole lot of people in the world get free lunches at their job, but it is what it is. Again, at the end of the day, it's the optics of it. Doesn't look good. You're always going to look like the bad guy, though, when you have to take away stuff like that, even if it's stuff that shouldn't have been given in the first place. That's just you're always going to look like the bad guy. So, but I do think Ineos have an opportunity to do better. It's hard. It's going to be difficult to come back from what they've done regarding the staff cuts and things, but they have an opportunity to learn not only from what their decisions, to learn what the Glazers have done to gotten us into this point, and like I said, learn from what Wrexham are really focusing on, and maybe have a better path set forward for themselves. But moving on to another point I think that Ineos can learn from, and that's the community. We're going to end here on perhaps the most important aspect of a football club, the community. This differs from just the mentality of a fan base in a couple different areas, right? Whereas the fan focus is more on the experience and the input of like your loyal match day supporters. Addressing the community factor adds layers such as culture, such as history. Wrexham's new owners collaborated with the National Centre for Learning Welsh to offer Welsh language lessons to staff and players, as well as a free taster course for fans. And this was all done in an effort to educate fans on Welsh culture and preserve it, because it is the lifeblood of this club. It's a Welsh club. The Ryan Rodney Reynolds Memorial Park was also announced. I think that was a birthday gift from Rob McElhenney to Ryan, but it's It's a community-oriented public space for art, for play, for projects, for the promotion of local ventures, causes, and businesses. This is how they're trying to preserve and impact and help the community flourish and thrive. The new owners also made a point to explore various points of Wrexham's history, such as the Gresford mining disaster and how it impacted the community. McElhenney even took it upon himself to plan and install the pithead winding gear wheel from that as a memorial component to the planned rebuilding of the club's cup at the racecourse ground and pay homage to the tragedy. But it's also not just to remind people of tragedy, but also to remind people of the strength, the resilience, and the pulling together of the community. You can't spell community without unity, and this is an important example of that. Ineos, on the other hand, might be going in a different direction. As Newton Heath, the club was originally founded by railway workers, blue-collar members of the community who knew what it meant to earn a living, to put the hard work in, to roll up your sleeves, to earn everything you got through hard work, through sacrifice, blood, sweat, and tears. And this working class community culture has been a foundational aspect of the club since, because Manchester is a hardworking blue-collar community. The canal, a heavy part of that industry, is even featured in our badge. Well, as so far, you never know what else these owners might change in the future. So when Sir Jim makes statements like, I don't think it makes sense for Manchester United ticket to cost less than a ticket to see Fulham, of course it's going to hackle a few feathers within the local community, and rightfully so. It completely disregards the working class roots of Manchester compared to a London-based club, even Fulham, no offense. We are the biggest club in the world, yes, but Ineos are starting to go down a path that focuses more on capitalizing from United's past success and commercial appeal rather than staying true to its roots. This is exactly what the Glazers did. It doesn't have to be one way or the other. Just like the redundancies and those other decisions, I think more thought, more creative problem solving can go into this facet of the club. How do we get back to that community? It's just up to Ineos and highly paid people that they task with these decisions to come up with solutions that show that they're earning their salaries. It's not up to you or me. It's not up to the fans. Ineos are the ones paying the salaries. Ineos are the ones in charge of the decisions. They need to show us that they're putting in the time and the thought and the care to do so. You want to embrace the renovation of the local area with this new stadium build and regeneration project and create space for people to gather and make a day of experiencing the local region. But I just hope it doesn't come at the cost of the identity and the foundations of that local community. It's just another thing, though, that Ryan Reynolds and Rob McElhenney have embraced and developed during just their short time as owners of Wrexham that I hope Ineos and Sir Jim can learn from and maybe take a few pages from moving forward. Yes, Wrexham is not Manchester United, but sometimes it's the little things, thinking smaller that make the big difference. Sometimes those little things are bigger in some ways. It's just, you never know how the small things can have a big impact. Wrexham's status has skyrocketed in the last few years. Of course, as a smaller club, it helps when Hollywood actors are your owners, but they haven't overlooked the history, the culture, the DNA of Wrexham and the community, which is why the fan base has been so supportive and proud of the direction the club is going. Ineos need to take note of this. It's too late for the Glazers. They had their run. They're done now. But Ineos have a chance to do things differently. They have a chance to keep United's history, culture, fan base at the forefront and unite everyone in an effort to rebuild this club in the best way possible, to return it to something that we can really take pride in. It starts from the top, though. It starts from the owners. It wouldn't take much, like I've said, for Ineos to show a few signs of good faith and good intention, but it's all on them. It's not about trying to replicate Wrexham's rise to fame. We're already the biggest club in the world. That stature, though, can sometimes mean the important things are neglected and over time even forgotten. In United's case, the culture and the fans have become footnotes as our owners were left to run riot with zero oversight. Wrexham have grown without losing sight of that. In fact, they've made a point to keep it a top priority. They've met with fans, they've listened to them, they've worked with the community, and they've even made Welsh culture, history, and the language a cornerstone of this new direction that they're taking the club in under new ownership. United and any other massive club really needs to take note of this and sometimes think smaller in order to think bigger. The fans, the community, the history and culture of Manchester are what made this club. And it's crucial that Ineos remembers that and works hard to preserve it. I hope for their sake, I hope for the club's sake, I hope for the fans' sake that they do. Time will tell. The proof of the pudding is in the eating, right? So those are a few things that I think Ineos could learn from what Wrexham have done under their new ownership. Yes, they're not the same in size and finances and fan base, but that doesn't make a difference. Sometimes the little clubs can teach the big clubs so much more than vice versa. So I appreciate you taking the time, you guys. Hope you agree. If you don't, let me know your thoughts in the chat. I'd love to get some conversations going. Please hit that like button for me. Please subscribe to the channel if you are new. Check the memberships, check the store, and I will talk to you guys on the next one. Later.